the next part I wanted to dive into is the poem. This is what I talked about, like when I said there's a big aspect of this chapter that plays into the what we're trying to solve in book 3. This is something like people who have really dove into these books. This is one of the aspects that we picked apart a lot and tried to analyze and tried to figure out through this poem we hear Kvothe tell that his mom gets mad about. So kind of, before go into the poem, just kind of to give you, a reminder of who the big players are that play into the poem is one of the big characters people focus in on that tie into this poem is Ajax. And Ajax is the guy that Hespa, she tells a story about Jax, who makes a deal with a tinker and ends up getting all of his packs, and then he ends up going and stealing the moon. And Florian talks about how in the Creation War, which is a story Scarpy tells about the battle between the Namers and the Shapers, Florian talks about how there was a chance for peace before Ajax stole the moon. So Ajax is going to be a central figure, and that's, just give you a recap on who he is. The other big figures, we'll talk about Lanre and Lyra and kind of how they play into this. And Lanre and Lyra is obviously Lanre's who becomes Haliax. Lyra's Lanre's woman. And then the huge revelation we get is Natalia Lackless plays into these poems. And so Natalia Lackless, this is one of the aspects we lose by redoing this. Like the first time we go through this, Fitz had no idea who Natalia Lackless was. And, there's of our listeners, the millions of them, probably half of them, we get like 30 million downloads an episode. So of the millions and millions of listeners, I probably like half of them,
it's like 15 million,
know who Natalia Lackless is, and then the other half are going to have no clue. This is going to be a revelation to them. But Natalia Lackless.
So can I give the clue, Dan, of what it is in this chapter that you asked me about originally? What the clue is that may have sparked anyone's mind?
Go ahead.
So if you were listening, there's a mention about Kvothe's mom possibly being of royal lineage or of some nobility. So if you picked up on that at all, that's kind of the jump off. Am I right?
Yeah, that was from last episode. It was the say perhaps that my mother was a noble before she was a trooper. She told me my father had lured her away from a miserable, dreary hell with sweet music and sweeter words. I could only assume she meant 3 Crossings, where we went to visit relatives when I was young once. So here's the big revelation is Natalia Lackless is Kvothe's mother. And so there's a few different clues that lay this out. Like that was the first one, that she's a noble and that Kvothe's father, as with the troops, stole her away from her noble family. But some of the other clues is she ran away. Natalia Lackless had also, as stated in The Wise Man's Fears, is stated to have ran away with a band of troopers. And then when Kvothe meets Maelwyn Lackless, Natalia Lackless' sister, he recognizes her. He thinks that he's seen her before. He can't place it, but he keeps looking at her and like, man, she looks so familiar. I can't place it.
Well,
reason he can't place it, it's because she looks like his mother, and he's not putting 2 and 2 together that this is his mom's sister.
The biggest thing that cinched it for me when I first heard the theory is Maelwyn. Man, does she have disdain for the Rue? It is vehement. It is on another level as to hatred of a group of people. It's supreme racism.
Did she mention that she knows it's the Rue, or is it troopers in general?
It's the Rue in general is who she hates.
Okay.
She
With-
despises
with-
the Rue,
with
like
in-
with
intense
a
disdain.
passion.
Yeah,
She has a massive hatred of the Rue.
it's jarring. It's jarring when you read it, like the way she, like how bad and vitriol the hatred is. It's just like, man, she, like, you do not want to go against this woman. She she has a lot of hatred in her heart.
When I read it the first time, like, I had no idea about all this stuff, but really it just reminded me of like someone who's really racist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
But she
basically
can't-
what it is.
yeah.
The Rue is a race.
Well, and she can't see beyond it. It's blind hatred.
just
It's
silly.
so well, and it's so real. It's so intense for her that she just can't see beyond it whatsoever.
Irrational
So it's like
hatred.
that blinding, irrational, blinding, emotional hatred. It's intense.
So the two other big clues is when he's telling this poem about Lady Lackless, his mother stops him, and she gets upset about him saying this poem, and after she chastises him over it, she also says, she stops him and she's like, you know, you can make it up to her and Lady Lackless if he does some chores. So he's saying you can make it up to me and Lady Lackless if you go and, you know, fetch me whatever, it's, you know, dead nettle or whatever it was that she asked him to fetch.
Sweet.
But
nettle.
the sweet nettle, okay. But the biggest clue, the one that cinches it, where it's like it's not a guess. It's 100. It's as close to 100% as you could get. It's in the second book. He is talking to Will and Sim, and he's telling him about his mom and dad, and how one time his dad recited a poem or a song that ended up getting his mom really mad at him, where she made him sleep under the wagon. And so in that poem, it was, Dark Lorien, Arladin's wife, has a face like the blade of a knife, has a voice like a prickle-brown burr, but can tally a sum like a moneylender. My sweet Tally cannot cook. My sweet Tally, Natalia, my sweet Tally cannot cook, but she keeps a tidy ledger book. For all her faults, I do confess it's worth my life to make my wife not Tally a lot less. And again, not Tally, Natalia, not Tally a lot less. Lackless. Lot less, Lackless. So that is what cinches it, is he's like, my sweet Tally and not Tally a lot less is a play on words for Natalia Lackless. And that is why the poem infuriated his mom, is because he's revealing the secret about that, you know, who she actually is. She's not Lorien, Arladin's wife. She's Natalia Lackless. She is a noble of an extremely noble family, one of the most noble families in this world. And he's revealing that secret, but he's being coy about it and being cute. And she did not find it cute. She was pissed about it. She made him sleep under a wagon for just even being coy about this secret.
It's
Just in passing,
it's-
Just in passing, real quick, Dan. Sorry, Tim. Do you think, Dan or Tim, that possibly her being Natalia Lackless has anything to do with them being killed, or is it just because of the song? Obviously, it's speculation at this point.
I don't no, like I not off the top of my head. It's possible, but I can't. No, I don't think it was that, because, you know, Kvothe is 12 years old when she gets killed. So she's obviously, she's been around in this group for a long time. If they were going to kill her, why wait, however many years,
So-
over a decade.
Well, maybe
it's kind of
they
an
were-
interesting point in the sense that, does she have to hide her identity? Is that
Yeah,
vital?
so maybe
It seems like
maybe
it.
they are on the hunt for her, and because they're singing about why else would Arladin? I mean, I guess because why else would Arladin want to even sing about the Chandrian? But maybe, possibly does.
Well, we
I
know
don't-
why, but
I'm just speculating that why.
well, no, I was going to say, why does she have to be hiding? Does she have to, like, not have? Does she have to go by a different name than Natalia? Is that vital?
Maybe she's hiding from the
I mean, it
Chandrian.
seems like why would she? It obviously is vital, otherwise she wouldn't change her name. And when you see the animosity that Maelwyn Lackless has for the Rue, it seems like she would want to
they'd
be
be
in
trying
hiding.
to like
Otherwise,
hunt her
this
down,
powerful noble family
come
might
after
go
her.
and
Okay.
come after her, take her back, or kill them. So it seems like
I got
she's
it.
would be in hiding. But like, why would she be in hiding for the Chandrian? Like, I mean, they talk about the Chandrian. They don't think the Chandrian are real. They think it's a story. So like, it's they think there's a historical basis for Lanre and Lyra and all that kind of stuff, but they don't like think like they think like when what's Abinthy is like,
Yeah, they think it's silly.
don't say their names. They think it's like silly to
yeah.
be that terrified of it. So no, I don't think that they were on the run from the Chandrian. I think she was hiding her name from her family.
Okay.
Because her family is a very powerful, noble family. But that poem, the not my sweet Tally cannot cook and not Tally a lot less, with all the other clues and him not being able to picture why he recognizes Maelwyn and all that kind of aspect of it. It's as close to a sure thing that his mom is Natalia Lackless, which I think is going to play a major role in book 3. So the big aspect of it, like the big thing that about these chapters, especially this poem and one other poem, we'll just kind of go into why I think these poems are important and why I think Ajax and Lanre and Lyra and Natalia Lackless is so pertinent to these poems. So the poem that he reads that infuriates his mom is 7 things has Lady Lackless, keeps them underneath her black dress. 1 a ring that's not for wearing, 1 a sharp word not for swearing. Right beside her husband's candle, there's a door without a handle. In a box no litter locks, Lackless keeps her husband's rocks. There's a secret she's been keeping, he's been dreaming and not sleeping. On a road that's not for traveling, Lackless likes her riddle raveling. This poem is very similar to a poem we get in the second book. After Kvothe leaves the Fae, he leaves Faeldreenal, Tempe and Kvothe and the group are heading back to the Mare Alvaron, and they run around on this ragtag troop that had lost their bear, and the little boy in the group says a poem to Kvothe, and the poem that he recites to Kvothe is 7 things stand before the entrance to the Lackless door. 1 of them a ring unworn, 1 a word that is forsworn, 1 a time that must be right, 1 a candle without light, 1 a son who brings the blood, 1 a door that holds the flood, 1 a thing tight held in keeping, then comes that which comes with sleeping. I think these 2 poems are integral into figuring out what is going to happen in book 3. Book 3 is likely going to be titled Doors of Stone, and I think these poems are key to figuring out what the Doors of Stone are, where it is, and how to open it, and who's behind it, and why it's important. I think these 2 poems really lay that out. So, like the first thing, going back to the first poem, you have 7 things has Lady Lackless, and in the boys' poem, it's 7 things that stand before the entrance to the Lackless door. So these 7 things, I think what they are trying to tell us is the way to open the Lackless door. I think that's the hidden meaning in this poem, is how to open the Lackless door, which I believe is the Doors of Stone.
Or maybe like a chastity belt that Lady Lackless is wearing, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it's 100% that. It is not the doors, it's 100% a chastity belt.
Yeah, that's a good payoff, right?
Yeah, except for,
Could be.
she's not around.
Potentially.
It's already happened. But so you have, the 7 things I think are what we'll try to figure out is what these 7 things are to open the doors. But then the second clue is keeps them underneath her black dress. So that is, I think, a clue on the location of where the clues are or where the door is, some aspect of that. And so a lot of people have surmised that Black Dress is very similar to Block of Drazen Tor, the Black of Drazen Tor. Like that is where the battle is fought, where Lanre is eventually killed. He slays some monster and then he's eventually killed. In that whole battle where Scarpy says more people were killed in that battle than exist in the world today. And during this battle, the location of this battle is called the Black of Drazen Tor. So black means battle, and Tor is a stone formation which often stands atop a hill or ridge. Some Tors resemble archways due to erosion. So I'll go into why I think that Tor is important. But I think Block of Drazen, Black Dress. Black Drazen, Black Dress. I think that's a play on words that Rothfuss is putting in there to kind of give us a clue on what this poem really entails.
Well,
if you guys understand what I'm going with.
I do, and I'll just kind of reiterate that by saying, now in the chapter itself, Kvothe's young mind perceives that poem in its entirety as being sexual in nature, and as a first time reader, you would think that as well. Not only because he says it, but because it's kind of like she keeps her husband's rocks. Yeah. There's a ring underneath her dress, but you're right. It's obviously not about that, as you have shown. And so, what's the other explanation? Because it's obviously not a sexual poem. It's something else. So, what could possibly be the explanation for the poem calling whatever this object or this secret is being underneath her black dress?
It seems like they're instructions, right?
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a hidden instructions on the location of the Lackless door or the doors of stone. I think they're the same thing. It's where the Lackless door is, how to open the Lackless door. I think that is the hidden meaning behind these poems. Obviously there's sexual innuendo that you can read into these poems, but I think that is just kind of Rothfuss' clever way of throwing you kind of off the scent.
Well,
so I think that it's something that you have to really analyze to be able to figure out.
Well, I think those are also implemented because that makes them more memorable in this world, right? I mean, you need clever, intriguing limericks. You know what I'm saying? Like to where it's funny to somebody, so that's why they repeat it. Somebody else repeats it because they just like how it sounds. They just like it lyrically. Other people think there's more to it than that. But I mean, that makes sense. That's how you get these things to last throughout. These little sayings, poems, lyrics, or limericks and whatnot.
And not to jump ahead, but as you mentioned in episode, I believe 15, Dan, if anyone is actively trying to hide information and steal books and things like that, well, the only way to really keep something alive, if you know somebody's out to keep it a secret, is to, do it in children's stories, do it in poems that are told mouth to mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so, moving into the rest of the poem is you have, the next part is want a ring that's not for wearing. So I think a ring that is not for wearing, there's many different interpretations. One is it could be a literal ring that you're not supposed to wear. So an example of that is the bone ring that Maelwyn gives Kvothe when she finds out he's with the Rue.
The bone. The bone comes from Strep, or whatever his name is. The wood ring, isn't it? Trep. Wood.
Oh, okay, the wood ring.
Yeah, she burns. Okay, burns into it, and they're all like, "Hey, dude, you're not supposed to wear this."
Yeah.
It's like it's very. It seems like she is a massive insult, huge insult.
Yeah. Everybody looks can-eye at it when he brings it up. Everybody's just kind of looking at it like, ugh.
Yeah,
and they look at it. It's everybody like they tried not to look at it, but they can't. They're drawn to it because of it. It is such a big insult. Yeah. And then he just he throws it on his finger and walks out the door, and what's Stape is like
Stape.
telling him like, hey, you really shouldn't be wearing that.
Well, he gets it from Stape.
So,
he gets it from the guy he plays chess.
Brandor. Not Brandor, Braden.
Yeah. I mean, he gets it enough where like it really cements in our mind. Like it's a massive insult. It's like basically she wiped her ass with this thing and you put it on.
Yeah.
Actually, it's worse because it's suggesting a station below that of like slaves. You know, it's like, oh man, yeah. I mean,
like dead man walking kind of thing.
Yeah. So it could be that. It could be literally a ring you're not supposed to wear, or it could be the ring, like the sound like a bell makes when you ring it. So like an example of that is in Trappist's story that he tells about Minda and Telu hunting in Canis. When Telu ties Canis to a wheel, there's a part where it's like, but then there was a sound like quenching iron. The wheel rung like an iron bell, and Canis' body arched painfully at the sound, then hung limply from his wrists as the ringing of the wheel faded. So it could be a ring like that, like something being rung. But I think the most likely guess, the one that I think is the most likely the right answer, is it also could be the ring of Greystones that he dreams about coming up shortly. So after his family is killed and he is in the woods by himself, he goes to sleep and he dreams about like being taught from one of the Lacklesses, or Lackless. He's taught by this guy how to, what food he can eat, what plants he can eat, what plants will, help you numb pain, which ones are poisonous, that kind of stuff. But then at the end of that dream, he sees a circle of greystones, and one of the greystones, one of the parts like forms like a doorway. Like there's two standing up and one going across the top like an archway. So there's that description of a circle of ringstones that I think is the most likely explanation of what the ring that's not for wearing. I think it's the one of them, a ring unworn. I think that is the door. I think the doors of stone is that circle of greystones. Like in greystones, that's how he gets into the Fae. Yeah, it's like a portal.
Channels,
and so, yeah,
exactly.
Well,
and
so I think this is a portal into what they lock someone behind.
They also seem to represent large moments in his life. Very, very large moments that loom large over the story and loom large over his experience seem to happen at Greystones. They're markers throughout the story. And as I started to realize that, I started to like recognize it much, much more and sort of highlight it in my mind when I come across it. So that does actually make a lot of sense to me. But it's funny, it's clever for Rothfuss to do it because when you read it, the first thing in my mind you go to are those rings that you don't wear in the mayor's court. That's the first thing you go to. And I think that's why it's so clever, because he lays out these things that in retrospect seem quite obvious. When you make these connections for what's her name? Lackless? Kvothe's mom?
Natalia.
Yeah, when you make those connections, it seems, this is kind of obvious. Once you make the connections, they're not. They're not at all obvious, which is why you say 15 million no, 15 million don't, right?
Yeah.
Well, just a little something I wanted to touch on while you bring up that bone ring again, Tim. I remember thinking that Kvothe had thrown that in the river, but I was incorrect in that. Am I right, Dan?
Yeah, he says it would be too dramatic.
Yeah,
I think he
holds on to that.
I think
he holds on to it. Yeah. The reason why I bring it up is because
the bone ring comes from Stape, and or whatever his name is, and the bone ring is extraordinarily meaningful. It's a lifetime debt that Stape feels for him because of how he saved the mayor. I think it was the wood ring that he thought about throwing, but that he thinks it would be. Actually, that's another element. You've brought that up a couple times, and I like it because it's something I like about Kvothe. It's one of those like Curb Your Enthusiasm moments where it's like, dude, come on, man. Like, it's too dramatic. Yeah. It's too freaking WB to do it, man. It's just, it's too lifetime.
Well, and I think it's significant, especially if, they mentioned it could be a key to the chastity belt. You have to put that ring in there just right to open up that chastity belt.
Yeah, that's definitely it. It's all about.
You just rub it.
You
just rub it on the outside, and it goes ring. It does it, and it makes the ring sound.
Oh, it makes the sound too. We figured it out. We got it.
Yep.
Voila! It literally just goes voila, and confetti sprays up.
You have to bring her inside the circle of greystones, and so all three of the pieces are super important.
I guess it could be like
getting this chastity belt off.
Could be like a diaphragm too, some kind of a magical diaphragm.
Not to dovetail too or go too far off the topic, but I feel like it's natural at this point. When the three of them are sitting, when it's the Amyr and Meluin and Kvothe with the box, she shows it to him and all the preamble built up and how uncomfortable she is in the moment and how much the Amyr has to like sell Kvothe on it and how he can feel that it's so great. There's so much mystique.
She won't even let Amyr touch it. If I remember right.
Yeah, she does. She lets him. Oh, okay. Yeah,
she lets him touch it, but she's very.
Her thing is not letting anybody else see it.
Yes, yeah. and she's very particular about where this could go, what you can do with it, how much they've thought about. I mean, how much it's been in the family for how long. It's really great.
But I think as far as like the third clue in both those poems, the one a ring that's not for wearing, and in the boys' poem it was one of them a ring unworn. I'm almost convinced that it's the circle of greystones just because of how important greystones are to the story. Obviously, they're mentioned constantly so many times in big events in his life. He's around greystones. I don't think that greystones are not going to be significant into getting in the doors of stone with how prominent a role they play behind the scenes throughout this book, and how they are like secret portals to get into the Fae, and so they're monster aspect of this world, and I think they're going to play a part into how to get into the doors of stone.
It does also seem like it's not just a door. There are ways to get into the Fae and these other places to keep things at bay. So it does seem like whatever is held behind it, which I have an idea, whatever's held behind it is all powerful and has evil incarnate, it seems, within. That's very important. It's not just behind a door. It's difficult to locate. And it seems like Block of Draws and Tor, Ring of Greystones, it's almost like, that staff with the stone at the top for the Raiders of the Lost Ark, when you have the map and it kind of pinpoints. That's what I feel like those two combined to become. So there is, and again, it's innocuous and it's hidden away from us, but you piece the things together and you can get to it. And Kvothe loves puzzles, man.
Yeah. Then, the fourth clue in both the chapters, I also think are the same. It's in the poem he tells his mom that his mom hears is one, a sharp word not for swearing. The boy's poem, it's one, a word that is forsworn. I think that there is a word that he needs to say, like a name, someone's true name, or there could be something like Edro, like a magic word that he has to say. I think there's some aspect of naming that is going to be important to be able to open the door. And I think the fact that they say like a word that is forsworn makes me think, or not for swearing, it's going to be a name like Telu's name or Iax's name or someone's name that you're not supposed to say, because you have two aspects. Like you have Telu's name when they're in Tarbean and the little kid's like, hey, don't, basically don't take Telu's name in vain.
That's what I was thinking.
So it could be,
What's the
could be something like that.
What's the creator of all?
Aleph.
I was thinking, one of those two. It would be Aleph's true name or Telu's true name, and for the same reason, because that gets peppered through where it's like, there's and that character itself, I think, is vitally important because the guy's like a thug, man. He's part of a group of people that are taking advantage of kids and beating the crap out of them, stealing all their stuff. Yet he still is like scared of like, don't say that name, you know. So it's one of those things that weaves through our world where it's like, you know, it's that fear of God. So yeah, I think it does seem like that would be one of the more difficult names for someone to know because it is, you know, the true name, you know, but it's something that's lived forever. Or, you know, it obviously would loom extraordinarily large that the creator of creation, you know, would be powerful.
It could also be Ajax's true name. Like, Florian's not willing to say Ajax's name. She's not willing to say Ajax. I don't remember how she references him, but she's unwilling to say his name. And so it could be Ajax's name. His name obviously sounds like, you know, not for swearing or you know, a word that is forsworn, based on the fact that Florian, as powerful as she is, and he's likely locked behind those doors, is not even willing to say his name. So I think there's some extreme power in his name, and I think that might be the name that is needed. That's a word that is forsworn. I think it might be Ajax's true name.
Well, and that's, I could see that, and he's in the same group. I mean, again, he's like these are all creators. These are all of the utmost, most powerful throughout this world. So I would,
Telu and him are the two that are both mentioned in a aspect of you don't want to say their name. Like, you know, that kid, like, don't say his name in vain, or Florian unwilling to say Ajax's name. So that's why I think it's likely a name that he needs. And then, you know, and to the next clue, it's there's a door without a handle. I think that is describing the Lackless door. Because there's a part where Claudicus, if you remember, Claudicus is the mayor's arcanist. He's the one that was poisoning him, trying to kill him. And Claudicus tells Kvothe a little piece of information about the Lackless family. He says, in the past, it has mutated several times from Leoklos, Loklos, Leolos. All three of these translate as Lackless, which ties into a legend surrounding the family, where it's rumored that there is a secret door on the oldest parts of their ancestral estate, which has no handles, hinges, or locks. So that is what leads me to believe that the Lackless door and the Doors of Stone are the same thing. I think that the Lackless door has no handles, no locks, no hinges. It is a smooth door, and that would also align with the Circle of Greystones, where there is, you know, there is no locks, there is no handle, there is no hinges. It's basically like the Stonehenge. And so that would all align with a lockless door, which would align with it being the Doors of Stone. That would also align with it being a lockless door, which would align with it being the Lackless door. And so that's part of the reason I believe that the Doors of Stone and Lackless door are all the same thing.
Hey, Dan, I mean, going back to this estate with this handleless and hingeless door that's just smooth, did anybody just think maybe that it's just a wall and try to see what's on the other side? Maybe it's just a wall and the bathroom's on the other side or something. You just, I don't know, it sounds like a wall. Yeah, it sounds like a wall.
Outhouse. Is it by the Stormwall Mountains? I don't remember where they're located.
No, I think she probably lives around where Mayor Alvaron lives in Ventus.
Ventus. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, but Ventus on the outer edge, the storm walls are over there. The reason why I bring it up is it feels like the Skrill came from the Stormwall Mountains. Am I wrong about that? It seems like there's a lot.
It came down.
Somewhere. Yeah, he doesn't mention the Stormwall Mountains, but he's like, I thought the mountains, and then he doesn't finish. So it sounded like he was going to say, I thought the mountains would hold him back longer. It would take him longer to get here because they would have to go over the mountains. Okay. But he doesn't say Stormwall Mountains. I would assume it is the Stormwall Mountains. But I think the door leads you to a place. I don't think, like, I think it's kind of like the Fae, like
Yeah.
you go
Yeah,
through
I
this
agree.
and then you're
Yeah.
not in the actual world. So I think there's going to be some complexity to exactly where the door is and what's the delineation between the Lackless door, the doors of stone. I think there's, like maybe like there's a door you go through that leads you down a path. Like there's a door that you go through at the Lackless door, then that leads you down a path to the doors of stone. It could be something like that, where it's not they're connecting pieces, where it's not like just one piece of the puzzle. You got to go through one to get to the other.
So you're saying,
so it could be complex.
So you're saying the Lackless door could be different than the doors of stone, them not being the same.
It could be, or
the university.
It could be that that's not the final step. That once you go through the doors of stone, you're traveling to basically like another dimension,
Mhm.
and then opening the flood or whatever releases you somewhere else.
Yeah, I wonder.
You don't come out the same place.
I wonder because he's
could be there. I mean, like there's no way to know exactly what is going to happen, and when you open it, do they come out the same door, or they release somewhere else, or is this two separate doors? There's no way to really know for sure.
He's left it quite open in the sense that we don't really see clearly what the Fae looks like, what it is, what wrap our hands around it or our minds around where this location is. There is,
it's basically like another dimension.
Well, yeah, and there are multiple doors as well. There's the university. There's this Lackless door. There's perhaps another door. So I do believe the Greystones have to play a part because they play into that as well, where they seem to be a channel towards it. And the moon seems to play a part with all of these things as well, which is a really great thing to do, to utilize in my opinion by Rothfuss, is because it's one of those things that throughout cultural history, it's this thing in the sky and you interpret it. All different cultures have put a different spin on the significance of planets, the moon, stars, and utilization of what these things mean, and interpreting it in different ways. So
so like you could think of it like it could be a situation where there's a Lackless door, you get through that, then you're in the circle of Greystones, you got to go through that leads you to the Fae. And when you're in the Fae, you're in like some aspect of the Fae that you can't just normally access. Maybe this is the only access point to this part of the Fae. And then once you're going in there and you're able to, you open these doors, you release the flood, but maybe they don't come out where you came in. Maybe they're coming out in a different thing, or it could all be the same thing. Maybe the doors of stone, Lackless door, are the same thing, but it's the same thing. Once you go in there, you release the flood. Maybe when you release that flood, they don't come out the same way you came in.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna mention. So that's an interesting part of it, is if it's another dimension. It's also interesting how it's been implied that this door or a door keeps evil at bay.
So
right, and it seems like Sleepless Lanre is behind a door. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like whatever. There's a hindrance. There's something that's being held back that can be released, and that's been implied by the Scrael. That's been implied by the Highwaymen, and just how depraved the world's become. I mean that's implied in chapter 2. I mean from the beginning. Well, it's implied from the beginning, from the prologue.
Is there any mention of going in one place to the Fae and coming out another? Location-wise, in Kvothe's world,
it's more time.
I know. No, I know.
I'm sure that that's the case. I'm sure there's multiple ways into the Fae and out of the Fae. I don't think that there's just one way in. One
what
way
I mean
out.
is because we're led to believe that many Greystones have some kind of from what he said with Faeldreenal, that many Greystones are doors or entryways. But is there any mention of going, a door letting you in one place, but then if you go out the same place from the Fae, that you enter somewhere else in the world?
Nowhere says that specifically. Yeah, no, I mean it could be that way. We don't know, but nowhere says it specifically. That's
I kind of wanted to just
works.
hash it out because the things that you guys are bringing up in this episode are so mind-boggling, or to new readers. Like, it all makes perfect sense. It makes great sense what you guys are saying, but it's to a first-time person who first time hears it, it's mind-blowing. And there's
my
so
favorite
many
thing
aspects
about it is so much of it is open to interpretation. That's kind of what I like so much about like the Fae itself. It's how you picture it in your mind. It's subtly described. It's subtly, there's these implications of where he's going, what's taking place, but you don't. I mean, it's very hazy. It's very dreamlike. And the whole experience for Kvothe is dream, and we're in him. That's how we experience the Fae. So it's great. I mean, and then the fact that Bass comes out of it and we see who he is. I mean, it keeps everything very open to interpretation. It's super interesting.
And then kind of going back into it, then like the next part you have is right beside her husband's candle, and in the boys' poem, you have one a time that must be right, and one a candle without light. And so I think these three all kind of tie together. Those three little lines is right beside her husband's candle, and one a time that must be right, one a candle without light. I think these could be referring to the moon. That's my best guess, is that because you could think of the candle as, or you could think of the moon like a candle. It's not, or a candle that is not lit, without light. It's a new moon. It illuminates an area, but it is not a lit itself. It's reflecting light. So a candle without light, it could be. You could think of the moon as a candle, as it lights things up for you at night. So you could think of it as a candle in that sense. But one that is not lit, you could think of that as like a moonless night. So a candle without light, you could think of the moon as a candle, and you could think of a moonless night as a candle without light. So I think
is that what's being implied on the pot that was at the Modern Farm?
I don't know what's being implied, but the other aspect is it could have something to do with Haliax, because on the pot that's at the Mothin Farm, she mentions Haliax as two candles on his shoulders. Like one's a lit golden or whatever, like a normal flame, and the other's like black, like a black flame. So there's an aspect of candles next to him. And so I think there might be a combination of that, something has to do with Haliax, and then another aspect of it has to be, it says like a time that's right. So it says one a time that must be right, one a candle without light. I think that's telling you it needs to be a moonless night.
So this goes back to what we've heard from Faeldreenal.
She's like,
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and she's like right beside her husband's candle, like, so the candles are over his shoulder. I think that there might be something to do with Haliax plus a moonless night that plays an aspect in opening the Lackless door. I don't know but that is my best guess, is that a moonless night is going to be important.
Doesn't Faeldreenal talk about this, about how important the moon is, about how...
Correct, yes. She's like, she mentions something to him where she's like, be careful wandering around on moonless nights. You might slip into the Fae and not be able to come out again. And she also mentions it in regards to that they travel basically in and out of this world. Part of that, their ability to travel between worlds has something to do with the phases of the moon. Like a moonless night or a full moon, these are the times it seems like that you're able to travel in. But she does mention a moonless night being particularly dangerous time to be around Greystones. And so I think that the Circle of Greystones being at it when it's a moonless night is going to play a pivotal role in being able to open the door.
Just to throw another thing out, Dan, does Bast, after Bast sings a nursery rhyme to Kvothe later on. Doesn't he compare Kvothe's life to a candle?
Yeah, I mean, he's just
What
like,
does your
what is your flickering
portend?
portend? But he's just talking about his life force. He's didn't compare him to a
He's
candle.
talking about
He compared him to like a fire flickering
his
out, basically.
midichlorians or whatever they're called.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit. What the hell were we just talking about?
But so you have.
Oh,
I think a moonless night.
I was going to say something that is insinuated by that as well is the moonless night is the shortest span of time possible, right? I mean, if you think about it, you have much more time that elapses throughout new moon, crescent moon, waning and waxing, gibbous, all that. You have more time. It's much less likely that you're going to stumble into this if it's going to be on a lack of moon.
Yeah, it's basically
moon.
one night, at least in our world, one night where there's a new moon.
So it's the least likely scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ari,
then moving on
Ari.
to the next aspect, there's a door without a handle, which we've already talked about. Like the Lackless door has no handles.
It's a wall.
And I also think this could be mentioning the Lackless box that he sees from Maelwyn, because he's like, there's a door without a handle, and he says, in a box, no lid or locks, Lackless keeps her husband's rocks. So that, I think, has to do with the Lackless box that Maelwyn shows Kvothe. Because it's in a box, there's no lid or locks, and when he rolls it around, he says it sounds like there's a stone in there or something. So what that stone could be, I don't know. I mean, it could be something like as crazy as it's the stone that Scarpy stabbed his eye out with. And maybe that plays a role in something. But it's
Wait, did you say Scarpy?
There's not a lot of good guesses on what could be inside it, but I think it's important.
I think you said Scarpy. You meant Celatose.
Yeah. Yes, the stone Celatose stabs his eye out with. The other thing is it could be like the name of the moon that Jax, he puts the name of the moon inside of a box. That's how he captures it. And so it could be her name incarnate, like the name that he's got locked away, like he's got to unlock her name to be able to open this door. That could play a role into this as well.
Hey, Dan, the other thing, the other box that we know that has no lid or locks would be Kvothe's box, his trunk.
I don't think that is what they're talking about, because it does have locks. It has 3 locks. It's the
thrice locked box. That's right. I'm just making.
I'm almost 90%. I'm almost 100% sure that it is the Lackless box, and I just don't know what's in it. But I'm fairly certain that is what they're talking about with. And because it has to do with the Lacklesses, I'm fairly certain that's it. That's hers. They in a box, no lid or locks. I'm fairly certain that is the Lackless box. I think that's obviously going to play a big role in book 3. I don't think they just mention that thing and then it's not going to play any kind of role. It's going to play a pivotal role, and I think that's what it's going to play a pivotal role in. Is it's needed to be able to open the doors of stone.
It seems like there's got to be something inside it because it's so difficult to get into. And again, this door is holding something at bay. So you need to make it as difficult as possible for somebody to get into it. But for some reason, I guess for the intrigue, for the super intrigue, you still got to have a way to get this thing.
So do you guys...
Well, because you can't destroy it, right? I mean, that would be the implication. That's why I keep thinking Sleepless Lanre, because you can't destroy this thing. It can't be killed, clearly. Why else is it behind a door? Why is it being held at bay? Why is it being locked away? Because if you could kill it, destroy it. Just destroy the frickin' thing.
Well, I'm thinking, and this is just... What's Lanray's wife's name?
Lyra.
So Lyra's the only one that we don't keep talking about, and I just want to throw this out there that she, with her voice, is able to bring back Lanray. I'm not putting pieces together. I'm just throwing these things out that, with her voice or with her naming, she's able to bring Lanray back, but she actually brings back this huge disaster, and maybe not till after she dies. Right, but he shouldn't have even been there. And also, we don't know of any other story where someone can come back from the dead. He does it because, she calls him back. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing it out there because, she's somebody that may get lost, in all the characters, but I feel like it's...
No, she plays a pivotal role.
Yeah,
I'm going to bring up.
Okay.
I think she's a pivotal role of these poems, not because of that, but I'll get into it. They, kind of finishing up these poems. Like the next part I wanted to bring up was in the boys' poem, because he goes, "One a son who brings the blood." So it's obviously the Lackless doors, Lackless box. So it's all about the Lacklesses and a son who brings the blood. I think that is referring to a Lackless male,
Amyr,
which would refer to Kvothe.
That makes sense.
So I think
which is great too, because
he's going to be integral to being able to open.
Well, it's great too because he's the bloodless, yet he brings the blood.
Yeah.
Rothfuss is pretty good at this writing thing.
Yeah. And then
He's not bad.
the other part is there's a secret she's been keeping. He's been dreaming and not sleeping. So what I think this is referring to is when he says she's been keeping a secret, that he's been dreaming and not sleeping. This could refer to naming or shaping, because the sleeping mind is obviously put in connection with naming. And Faeldreenal describes shapers as dreamers. So when she says he's been dreaming and not sleeping, I think that might refer to he's been shaping instead of naming. And I think that shaping is also going to be pivotal into being able to open the door.
So what's that saying that
you're saying Kvothe has been shaping? Is that
no?
I think it says there's a secret she's been keeping. He's been dreaming and not sleeping. I forget who he is or she is. I think the reason they put been dreaming and not sleeping is I think the connection you're supposed to make is the sleeping mind versus Faeldreenal describing shapers as dreamers. So he's been shaping instead of naming. And I think that shaping is going to play some kind of aspect into being able to open the doors. You're going to have to be a shaper to open these doors, not just a namer.
Anything to Lanray not being able to fall asleep?
It could be it could have something to do with the 4 doors that the mind uses to escape pain. Could be. I just don't know. I don't know in what respect, and I don't know why escaping pain would, hiding yourself behind these doors would help you get into another door.
Sure.
No, it seems like,
but it could be, but it would seem that it would be more logical, and it would make more sense if shaping is involved versus hiding behind doors to escape pain.
It seems like the only at least the essence I got from Lanray's story is for him to be locked behind a door, it would be to protect the world from his wrath, because his wrath is ceaseless, right? He wants to end the world, destruction. and he it doesn't seem like he has it doesn't seem like he grasped some need in his mind to stop himself. You know what I'm saying?
The opposite.
So, yeah, exactly. That's yeah. So, yeah, I like a lot how Rothfuss uses this sleep dream perspective in multiple ways, where it's the sleeping mind, it's those doors of the door of sleep, but then it's also the subconscious. He plays with the subconscious in a way that you have to access it. You have to play in that arena to be able to name and shape. And it's those that rule the world. It's the Elodans, it's the Lanrays, it's those people that are the powerful, the ultimate powerful. Yeah. I don't know, it's like a plane he's created that's super fascinating.
Yeah, I would, and because of the war, the creation war, which is pivotal in this overall story, is the battle between the namers and the shapers. I would be surprised if there's not some aspect of shaping that Kvothe is going to need to be able to open these doors, and I think that's probably the best clue that the shaping is needed.
So, hey, I don't know if it's a backtrack or not, but going back to the poem where, we're talking about Lady Lackless's husband, I assume that he's been dreaming and not sleeping. And so what we're saying is that he is a shaper. Am I right in saying that? And
yeah,
so,
I think it's saying that the shaping is needed. I don't know that you have to just read it exactly literal, but I think it's shaping is definitely needed, is what my guess would be.
And so my question is, who's Lady Lackless's husband? Who's Lady Lackless?
We'll go into that. That's that's how we'll tie it all together. But before we dive into who all these characters might be that are in the poem, there's the other aspect is it's a door that holds the flood, which I think that's important. And it seems like in the frame and when he's Kote in the bar that he has unleashed the flood on the world. That you now have Scrael, that these people don't know what are. There's the skin dancer that hasn't been seen in thousands of years or however long Bass says, and they're different, they're stupid. Like he was talking about, normally a skin dancer, when you kill one body, would just jump into someone else's body, and then they would start using that to kill everybody, and they would just jump from body in body until everybody was dead. But this one stays in the body. It was stupid. So I think the flood, I think that is the biggest clue that the door holds the flood. I think that's the biggest clue that this door is opened in book 3, is it feels like a flood has been unleashed on this world. And now the skin dancers are loose. The Scrael are loose. Like these monsters have been unleashed on the world. And I also think that Ajax is likely someone who's been locked behind the door, so it's likely that he has been unleashed on the world. And you have one of the most powerful figures who has ever existed, with Aleph and Celatos and Lanre and Lyra. Ajax is the other guy that's, the most powerful shaper in the history of the world. He's the one that created the Fae mostly. And so I think it's an indication that these people have been unleashed on the world. And that,
I was just gonna say it's so heavy too. I mean, I know we've talked about that, but the early chapters, it's as if it's almost like a joyless place at this point. There is joy in reminiscing, and when Kvothe talks about the past and the stories, there's liveliness and some music, but there's just nothing in live time. And well, I mean, we only have access to a couple days anyway, so I don't want to read too much into that, but it's heavy, man. The existing reality is super, super duper heavy.
Well, there's no doubt that something catastrophic has happened. I can't remember if it's happened or not yet, but when the guy comes in and talks about what he has seen Kvothe do, when the guy names Kvothe and says, "Hey, you're him," at the Waystone Inn, but I think the aspect of it is Kvothe blames himself, obviously, and it's something terrible that's happened that he's done. While you might think it's at this point that just that maybe Den has been killed or that Kvothe killed somebody or whatever it may be, the implications from the story are that there's something way bigger going on. Whether Kvothe caused the Scrael and everything like that, we don't know, except that Kvothe blames himself and does say, "This is all my fault."
Yeah, it seems likely that he's responsible. And the fact that a son who brings the blood and all that kind of stuff, I think and it has to do with the Lackless family, and his mom's Natalia Lackless. I think it's highly likely that he's going to open the doors of stone. But kind of to finish up the last parts of these poems, like the last of the boys' poem was one a thing tight held in keeping, which I think that might be in reference to the Lackless box as well. because they talk about in a box, no litter locks. Lady Lackless keeps her husband rocks in the first one. And this one, they say, one a thing tight held in keeping. So it sounds like a secret. And I think the secret is what's inside the Lackless box, because that's obviously a huge secret in this world and in the Lackless family. So I think you need to, I think that's just reiterating that you need whatever's inside the Lackless box. And then it finishes with, then comes that which comes with sleeping, which could be something to do with naming, or, like sleeping is one of the ways you go behind the 4 doors to escape pain. So it could be something to do with that. I would think more than likely with naming, again, would be the most likely scenario that I would come up with. But those would be my best guesses for those parts.
Yeah, I don't.
And then to finish up the poem that he reads to his mom, it finishes with, on a road that's not for traveling, Lackless likes her riddle raveling. And the last line, Lackless likes her riddle raveling, I think the poem that he's reading is either a new poem that kind of played off of the boys' poem, and they created a second poem about the Lackless family, but they incorporated the fact that Lackless ran away with Rue, and so she likes her riddle raveling, could be her little raveling, like they call the Rue the ravel. And so it could be talking about Kvothe. So when they're referring to Lackless, they could be referring specifically to Natalia Lackless, and why she took it so personal when he was reading this poem is it's actually been written about her. Or it could be that they added this last line into a poem that's already existed for a long time, and they added just like an extra line into it.
What's so interesting about that to me, so if this is written by a group of individuals that know all, that have access to information, that are privy to the future or what the fatefulness brings.
How can it be a group of
They wrote
individuals?
this including Kvothe. Well, I think of the Amyr. I mean, who else is writing this? Where's this coming from? It's coming from somebody. Yeah. And I mean,
somebody's
they're
naming clues anyway.
How old is he at this point? Is he like
12?
Yeah,
he's 12.
So I mean, they're talking about frickin' Luke Skywalker here. Like what? I mean, and when he's 12, so yeah, it's. That's what it says to me. I mean, that's what it hints to me, and we get those feelings from Scarpy and the existence of these stories that seem to pull the future into existence.
Yeah, and there's multiple stories, like the fact that the Chandrian were scared away right before they killed him. The fact that he has dreams that tell him how to survive in the woods when he's by himself. He has a dream about the Greystones, which he's never seen, and learning knots from Ben, which he never learned. And then, like, he's saved when he's dying in Tarbean. He's saved in a circumstance that doesn't make any kind of sense, that he would just be randomly
and it also
saved.
speaks to when he's able to do things he shouldn't be able to do, like when Kilvin's like, well, how's that possible? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Or even like the coincidences that Fitz points out, where he says, well, that seems too convenient, that he shows up at the Malden farm and here's dinner. So maybe it's not convenient. Maybe it is written in the stone, or whatever, maybe it is this faithfulness that he's a kind of a pawn that's being utilized.
Kvothe
to
being
a
a pawn to his own fate.
It could be fate. It could be. Yeah, it could be fate. It could be that there's guys behind the scenes that are pulling the strings, and he's more like a puppet. And so, it could be like Rothfuss does with everything. It could be a number of different things.
Kvothe is definitely led
for sure
in all his endeavors. From one thing to another, he's kind of pulled by the nose. I have to think that, like,
every time it seems
the way he's brought up, the people who lead him, hell, getting out of him waking up to get out of Tarbean, every little aspect of the story of Kvothe's life is brought up by someone else.
Well, it's someone else coming or leaving, and if it's anything that seems like happenstance, it's not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's telling you look further.
Yeah, at first,
read deeper because there's something.
At first,
to
I
this.
was very put off by the amount of happenstance until I realized that it was integral, that it's it's part of it. It's not just know what I'm saying.
It insists
Right.
it insists upon itself.
It's like a kid's story. You read a kid's story where people happen upon each other and it's just a coincidence and it works out great. Like a sitcom or something that so and so met so and they both had the same objective. That's not what's going on here, where it's happenstance. He's being led. I think it's clear.
So again, he's being led by whom? The Amyr?
Yeah. Or the Chandrian?
I think it could be the angels and the Amyr. It could be the Chandrian. Yeah, it could be any of them or all of them. It could all be pulling them in different directions. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I think the Amyr are definitely playing a role because I think Scarpy is almost certainly a member of the Amyr, and so I think that they are definitely playing a role, and I think the angels are highly likely playing a role.
What's super duper interesting about you can speculate and you can make a case for both. You can make a case that he's a pawn of the Chandrian or he's a pawn of the Amyr.
So
you know what I'm saying? And that's what's so fucking great about how he's wove this all together. You know what I'm saying? Because you can make a case for either. Because he's unleashed hell on the world, so perhaps he was used to release hell. Yeah,
I'll further that that it might be the Chandrian in that they don't kill him when they had the opportunity to. Well, but they had. But
they were scared away. They taught he literally commanded what's his face to kill him before he got fucking snippy with him, and then he went to teach him a lesson, and then by the time he was done teaching him his lesson, then he was like, "Oh shit, they're here. We got to get the fuck out of here."
Well, did he say put him behind the doors asleep?
He basically was saying put him out of his misery.
Or he might have been saying I'm playing the devil's advocate because I kind of think that he's led by the Amyr, but the case can be made because a lot of
I just don't know why they would be like someone's coming and then Kvothe feels a presence but that was just an act, because like the fact that Kvothe feels the presence, he felt someone coming, makes it seem pretty crystal clear that someone was actually coming and scared them away, and that they weren't just like
coming
putting
to
on
his
a show
rescue.
for him.
Yeah, coming to his rescue.
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, I agree. I that's at the same time.
What I love about it is you could interpret it either way. It's open to interpretation because you could make a case for saying they were led astray for a reason. It's kind of like why is Cauticus, by the way, why is Cauticus poisoning the mare? Maybe that's actually not a bad thing. I mean, because he marries Meluan. So it's great because
maybe.
Yeah. And let me because we're like that'll then we can dive into like the implications here, and that's one of them. The last part, the only other part of the poem was on a road that's not for traveling. That I think it gives a good indication of how to get to the Doors of Stone or a general area of where they are, because there's a place called Faeldreenal, which there's a story that Kvothe tells Will and Sim about a bum that is traveling Faeldreenal. He's walking by himself and he comes across different groups of people. Comes across the Adem. He comes across a Cthaeh. He comes across some Sealdish people and some Aturan people, and so then he ends up coming across the Rue last. And so this guy's name was Skiop. And so Skiop, when he finds the Rue, he's like, he goes, once, years ago and miles away, 5 groups of travelers came to Faeldreenal. They chose their clearings and lit their fires. And then later on, it's Skiop walked through the center of Faeldreenal, and as he did, he saw a circle of greystones. And this is where the Adema Rue were camped. And I think that Circle of Greystones is the same Circle of Greystones that he dreams about. I think that the fact that they're in Faeldreenal and this is where the Rue were, I don't think this is a coincidence that these are the two that they talk about a Circle of Greystones in this story, and he dreams about a Circle of Greystones. I think they're the same. Part of the reason is they say that this is on a road that's not for traveling. Faeldreenal is described as a road that is not for traveling. This is not a road that you travel down. It's in some sense it's described as not a road for traveling. So I think that Faeldreenal is either like a separate dimension that you go to, and that you have to go into this separate dimension to be able to find the Circle of Greystones, which is the access to the Doors of Stone. You have to find, the way you find it is to go through the Black of Drazentor, that you have to find where that battle was fought. There's some kind of access point that leads you into Faeldreenal from there, and then Faeldreenal is where the Doors of Stone specifically is. So I think that's likely a road not for traveling. I think is going to be Faeldreenal, and I think that is going to be where the Circle of Greystones is, and that's where the Doors of Stone is. And I think likely the way to get to Faeldreenal is to find where the Battle of the Black of Drazentor is.
So that when they mention that road, it always reminds me of the road that Kvothe goes on to see the Cthaeh. That just happens to not have the guards on it. And Florian's like, how'd you even get there? I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping for straws here, but it just seemed like, at least that always reminded me, a road not for traveling, that Kvothe was on this road that led straight to the Cthaeh, and he was not supposed to be there.
I would be surprised just because of who the Cthaeh is, and to have him be at the entrance to the Lackless door. I would be surprised because he would just tell people how to open the door immediately and unleash hell.
But maybe on the other side, like on the other side of the door is the Cthaeh. See what I'm saying? Like
No, that's definitely not it, because they lock this behind the door, and like it's not just that you can go into the Fae and get there, because that's not locked behind a door.
Yeah,
everybody has access to the.
If that were the case, then
I don't think it has to do with the Cthaeh.
What? So, remind me. So, Faeldreenal has anything to do with Amyr Tyrannial, or no?
No, they don't mention them in connection with each other. But it could be like Amyr Tyrannial is. There's. Maybe that's, it's close to where the Black Drazentor was fought, and like when you go through some portal through some Greystone, like Faeldreenal could be, Amyr Tyrannial, but the Fae version of it could be that.
That's kind of what popped in my mind, because when I hear it, it feels like that to me, but I don't know if it's that simple. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be that's where the name comes from, is the Fae version of Amyr Tyrannial, Faeldreenal. Could be, I don't know. I don't know exactly where Faeldreenal is or exactly how to get there. It's just pure speculation. But I do think that Faeldreenal is going to be where the Doors of Stone is. I think that Circle of Greystones that is in there is going to come into play.
Well, I agree with that. Couldn't the road not for traveling be the road to Cthaeh?
Yeah, that
because
euphemism.
It's literally nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Do we even know what Cthaeh is?
Yeah, it's a place.
It's an actual place.
Yeah, it's on the map. Yeah, it's a place. Okay. But Dan ignored it completely. So
yeah, when when Dan ignores something, there's something to it.
Yeah,
he's deep in thought.
No,
I wrapped him up.
I was looking at my notes, and apparently when I was talking to you, I deleted the entire notes I had on this whole thing. But the good thing is we had finished the poem, so luckily I deleted it as we finished the pertinent information that I needed. There's a couple things I'll have to go off of memory on, but I think that ties it in. So I think that gives a good indication that these poems are important. They're not just random poems. It's not just sexual innuendo. I think this is about the Lackless door, the Lackless box, the doors of stone, and Ajax, and what's hidden behind there, like the Scrael and these things. I think they're important. I think that is going to be an aspect that plays a huge part into why Kvothe is so distraught on what he's done to the world. I think a big part of it is he's going to have opened these doors and unleashed hell in the world. But who is Lady Lackless in the poems? I think it could be his mom, but I also think it goes back further than that. And I think one of the biggest clues to it is that Ajax is almost certainly the founder of the Lackless family. It's almost certainly that Ajax is a Lackless. The Lacklesses are described as the luckless family by their detractors. Ajax in Hespa's story as Jax is described as a luckless boy. He's got no luck. There's obviously a terrible luck surrounds him.
It?
So there's that connection.
I had not realized that he describes him as luckless.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
he's all depraved. That's why.
Yeah, and also you have the aspects of Kvothe is described a number of times as having Fey blood, or a little bit. He's Fey touched. He's got a little fairy blood in him. There's numerous descriptions where they say he's got a Fey look to him. And Jax is also described as being like part Fey or having Fey blood or some aspect of that. Then there's also like Jax, because he was luckless, every time he'd get a new shirt, he would tear a hole in it. Kvothe, every time he gets a new shirt, he tears a hole in it. He ruins his shirts constantly. And then there was the last aspect is that Ajax is described as having like ever-changing eyes, or his eye color is changing, which is obviously similar to Kvothe. And his eyes all the time, change color with his moods. So there's all these similarities in these descriptions of them that tie them all together. And I think the fact that Ajax is likely the one who was locked behind the doors of stone, the Lackless box, the Lackless, I think these are all implying that he was the OG Lackless, and they locked him behind his own ancestral lands. They locked him behind a door on his ancestral lands that he cannot get out from behind.
Well, and he turns bad, right, as well, right?
Ajax is the one that started the creation war. Yeah, like the
so that makes sense.
He obviously probably doesn't think he's the bad guy. Like he was just like he's in their own right, he's like describing. She was like, the Shapers did beautiful things at first, and they created all these wonderful things, and then there was a chance for peace until Ajax then stole the moon. So he set in motion the creation war, and then through that battle he ended up getting locked behind these doors of stone. And so I think it's likely that he's the original Lackless. But when they talk about Lady Lackless, I think that's probably talking about like when they're like Lady Lackless and her husband. I think that's talking about Lyra and Lanre. I think Lyra is Lady Lackless, and I think Lanre is her husband. And so it could be that Lyra is Ajax's son, or Lanre is Ajax's son or his son-in-law.
Man,
and so much. I think one of the reasons I think Lyra could be Lady Lackless is there's all those indications in the poem. Like you have the candles where Ajax has the candles over his shoulders, and she is like right beside her husband's candle. I think that could play into it, but also like talks about Lady Lackless's black dress, which we tied into Block of Draws and Tor.
Yeah.
But also it could
Isn't that where she dies?
That's where he dies.
Oh,
and
yeah,
also black
sacrifices.
dress is, you wear black when, you're in mourning and someone dies. So like Lady underneath her black dress, underneath
yeah.
where he died, I think there's a superficial connection. It might not be true, but I think that would be my best guess into who Lady Lackless is and her husband. My best guess would be Lyra and Lanre, because I don't know who the fuck else it would be if it's not them. Because it doesn't mention like Ajax having a wife, so I don't think that it's talking about him and his wife. So the only two other major figures, married figure from that time, the only ones is Lanre and Lyra. So it seems like just at a process of elimination, it's got to be them.
Well, the only women are Piriel, right? It's Piriel.
Well, and that's way later.
Lyra.
That's even way later.
But that's
Piriel's even way later.
Okay.
And then like
There's
you have
no
like
other examples of
Gisa
old women.
and Ordal and like the ones that become angels.
Yeah,
they become angels. So
that
I don't think that's them. No.
Separate to me, but
yeah, I agree. I don't think they have.
I'm just going to tell you, like, is I'm listening to this episode 4. I've already paused 14 times to think about what all we're saying. I can't even hardly contribute to this because of how much of this still blows my mind. How many aspects of the book that you?
I wonder if Rothfuss intentionally like he snickers in his mind when he makes all these he throws all these implications together, because it's not an accident. It's not an accident that but there's only so much. I mean, one thing that a writer's going to be cognizant of is all he's giving us is what he's creating, the words on the page. And we can make connections based on what we see, and he holds back certain things and gives us certain things. But I mean, he's gotta love that part of it. It's just like snickering in the back of his mind, like they don't know. They like, could be this, could be this.
No, he's laid the whole. It's not a snickering. It's a satisfaction. He has done this on purpose. I mean. Yeah, no, I know. He's not laughing at us. All I'm saying, like even though he's brought us down these trails. He's got to love this. He's got to love.
I would.
He's got to love.
I would love it.
Yeah, what a glorious, what a great picture he's painted with. I don't even know how to. Maybe I can explain it as a maze. Where the maze drawer,
it's a
the maze maker,
man.
There's so many different things that you could pass, you could go down, and.
Well, yeah. I mean, just think about any two characters that you want to pit against, like what is Cauticus? What is his ultimate role? What role does he actually play? And you can just go down that road with him with
the mayor.
Brandur. Is it Brandur? Bredon. Braden. Yeah.
Oh, now Braden the guy that plays chess with Kvothe or whatever that game is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
But the implications that you can spin out of these poems. Okay, so when you go through it, then you start tying the pieces, and you obviously, okay, they're the Lackless door, and this is what he needs to get behind him, and then okay, is it Ajax behind the door, and then is Ajax a Lackless? Is Lyra and Lanre a Lackless? And if they're Lacklesses, and Kvothe's mom is Natalia Lackless, that means that Kvothe is a descendant of Ajax or Lyra and Lanre, or all three of them. And that could explain why he's so powerful, why he seems to be such a central figure, why he's able to do these things that Master Kilvin can't even comprehend, why he's able to name Florian. The first time he sees her, he's able to name her and control her, and he could have killed her. And he's able to do just these unbelievable things that just don't seem humanly possible. It could be that he's a descendant of the most powerful people that have ever existed on this world.
Yeah, also why he has these backers who help him at the most, what look like the most dire straits that come to his rescue.
Yeah, it could explain why someone jumps in and saves him from the Chandrian, why he's given that dream, why he's saved in Tarbean when he's bleeding out, dying, in the cold after he got the shit beat out of him by that guard when he went to the good side of town, why he was saved in that situation, and like so many things that happened to him that he's able to just survive by the skin of his teeth. And it seems like there's people guiding him, or that people are watching him or trying to control him or use him. It seems like it's because of he's an important figure, and if he's a descendant of Ajax or Lanre, Lyra, or all three, that would explain so much about what's going on in these books. And then you can branch it out into other aspects. You could look at, like Tim's mentioned, Cauticus. The big question is Cauticus is why is he trying to kill the mayor or prevent him from getting married or have kids? Well, when you think about the poem, is like a son who brings the blood. He ends up marrying Maelwyn Lackless. It could have been that he was originally set to marry Natalia Lackless. And so it could have been a situation where he could have been Kvothe's dad. And he could have been, it had, different things happen.
Why do you speculate that, and what ramifications?
No. Listen. I'm saying that he ended up marrying Maelwyn Lackless because he had to marry someone that was almost equal to him in power, so he didn't give up any leverage to the King Roderick. So there was only a set few people he could marry. Like he tells Kvothe, I only have one option. I either marry Maelwyn Lackless or nobody. And so it could have been a situation that had he not married Maelwyn, he would have married her older sister, Natalia Lackless. So by a twist of fate, instead of Kvothe being the son of Arladin and Natalia Lackless, had things gone different, had Arladin never showed up there, he could have been the son of the mayor and Natalia Lackless, because the mayor seemed to be desperate to marry into that Lackless family because that was his only option. He didn't have other options, other women. So Natalia and Maelwyn would have been the two. But Natalia dips out, so Maelwyn's the one he ends up with. But why is Cauticus trying to prevent him from getting married, or, keeping him sick and not killing him? It could be that he was trying to prevent the mayor marrying Maelwyn and creating a Lackless heir, a male heir that could open the doors. Could be that Cauticus is working for the Amyr, and he is trying to keep the doors of stone shut. So that could be an explanation, because if you remember, the mayor was flabbergasted. He was like, why the fuck would this guy turn on me? I give him everything.
It took him forever to be sold. Yeah.
And so that would be a great explanation, is that Cauticus is an Amyr, and he's trying to prevent a Lackless heir from being born. So since the mayor is hell-bent on marrying Maelwyn Lackless, he's doing everything in his power to prevent that from happening.
And I'll curtail that by saying the fact that Kvothe was there at the right time to thwart that plan could lend to the fact that Kvothe is also being used, or specifically being used by the Chandrian. Or if Ajax is in charge of the Chandrian from behind the scenes. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, there could be an aspect to it where Kvothe was positioned by someone to stop Cauticus and to thwart the Amyr's plans.
Crazy, man. There's so much.
But,
this is the... of all the episodes we've done, this is the most wild. And I'm not saying the 4, I'm saying the 17 or whatever we've done. This really is the episode that will lead people in to tell them how much more is going on in this story. If they're not going to Reddit or going back to theorize, there's so much more theory to this than you would ever think.
The great thing is, I mean, every single revelation is so great, because, like, when we just talked about Cauticus and how long it took for the mayor to be sold, that he was against him, the whole revelation takes forever, and it's it's fantastically done, because the Stape is trying to prevent the mayor from being upset about all the birds dying when Kvothe needs the birds to die. It's so great. Like, I mean, how it all plays out is it's always just artfully done, man. And it's so thoughtful on every little procedure on how these things are revealed. And we're along for the ride in every aspect of it. It's just great. I still feel like Lanre, it makes sense to me that Lanre would be behind the doors because he's the force of evil. He was the unleashed, right? He's
Haliax, though. Haliax is wandering around.
Oh yeah, I guess
he's the force of evil, at least in one aspect, one specific time of war in the history of the world.
Another part I say it because we keep talking about the sleepless and
another part that ties Iax to Haliax is Haliax. It means breath of Iax.
Oh,
like Hal in Latin means breath, so Haliax, breath of Iax. So that could tie them together as far as them being related son-in-law, or it could be an aspect of when, in order for him to try to save Lyra, and he talked to the Cthaeh, like Bass says, before Iax started the Chandri, and he talked to the Cthaeh. It could be that he went and talked to the Cthaeh, and the Cthaeh was like, you have to gain these abilities that allow you to pass through any door. Because he's like, I can't sleep, I can't die, I can't, go mad. All the 4 doors. He's like, he says he can't utilize in him. He's like, no door bars my passing. So it could be that he gained some power that allowed him to go to speak to Iax. And there's something that happened when he spoke to Iax that is why he became Haliax, breath of Iax. There could be some kind of aspect, and that fact that he can't pass through the doors could have been, that the thing that, why he is who he is now is because now he's in a situation where he can't die, can't kill himself. There's no escape for him. He's just living in torment now, and the Cthaeh just completely fucked him over and tricked him into doing something disastrous for himself.
And again, the way Rothfuss describes that is, again, doors.
Yeah.
Right? The door. He always layers it on it.
You guys speculate at all who the Cthaeh might be?
I don't think he's anybody else in the story. I think he's just the Cthaeh.
Tim?
It feels like, no, I agree with Dan. It feels like the Cthaeh is the Cthaeh, and it's not something else. It's literally...
You don't think it could be Iax?
No, he's definitely not Iax.
Why?
Because they're described separately. Iax is described as talking to the Cthaeh. He's like, before Iax stole the moon, he talked to the Cthaeh.
Oh, yeah, he talked to the Cthaeh.
They're described as two separate people
by
multiple people. Florian and... Like, Florian won't mention Iax's name. She talks about the Cthaeh.
Okay.
It is very strange. And we see that with Bast as well. So Bast and Florian, both of the Fae, don't fuck around with tempting fate, right? Like, it's not a joke to them. You don't say it. Like, so when Bast flips out about Kvothe,
it seems like Florian views Iax, or at least naming Iax is very dangerous, whereas Bast thinks the Cthaeh is the ultimate danger. Obviously, Florian thinks that the Cthaeh is a extremely dangerous person as well, but she also lets Kvothe go out into the world after he spoke to the Cthaeh, so she obviously doesn't think it was that bad, or she's just extremely reckless.
Yeah, she's got a lot of hubris. We shouldn't forget that. She wants her story out there.
What a strange element, force to bring in the Cthaeh.
Yeah,
it's such a.
It's almost like the advocate or the adversary. It's
Yeah, but it just creates ripples. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't literally get involved. It gets involved in people's minds.
And that it can't lie. That's the thing that blows my mind, is that it can't lie. It tells you shit that will fuck up the entire world, but he can't tell a lie. I don't know that.
Yeah, it's a bizarre enemy.
Very.
Someone that is that vicious, that has complete clairvoyance, sees not only the future, sees every path, sees that every single word that I tell you, how I say it, the inflection of my voice, the cadence, and all that kind of stuff. Like if the way he said it would cause something different to happen, he would see all different paths that it would go down. He knows exactly what he has to say to you to send you down the worst possible path for you and the world. So that's for someone to have that kind of ability and to also be malicious would make him a very fucking dangerous person in the world.
It's fucking insane. And then also to have it this separate immortal force.
Yeah, and then you have basically like the Greek gods, battling it out with each other, and then this is just one of them. He's the trickster, the fucking the Loki, except for just pure evil. And then you have the other guys like Lanre and Lyra, and they're all just these absurdly powerful people, and Kvothe is just mixed up in the middle of them in their history, and he's mixed up in a story that's 5,000 years old, and it's pulling him into it and making him a integral part into finishing their fucking battle.
Well, and it does say everything that he can run into Faeldreenal and run that shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That says so much in terms of he's not out of his league. He's where he's supposed to be.
He basically almost kills her. He or at least has the ability to kill her.
He gets complete supremacy. I mean, he gets this
and beyond his beyond just the battle.
I mean,
he continues to play her throughout the whole thing. Now he barely keeps himself out of harm's way throughout the whole thing, whether it be months or years. But throughout the whole thing, he does make sure that he's safe.
Well, First he goes voluntarily, and then he exercises extraordinarily extreme self-control from beginning to end. And when he allows himself to lose control, it's only a part of his mind. He doesn't allow his full self. I mean, this is when he becomes, Skywalker, whatever you want to call it, man.
I do love the aspect of that story where she's basically in the real world and starts running back to the Fae. The other guy starts to run and then stops, and then Kvothe is like, "Oh no, I am in," and he just runs full speed. And has no qualms about it.
and he's coming right off of death's door, basically, and he had just accomplished something that is not possible. Yet he does it.
He's
incredible.
wild man at that point.
It's about as wild. That's something that's so interesting about it. It's extraordinarily wild for him to do what he does, and then he exercises extraordinary self-control immediately afterwards.
Yeah, he's a beast. He is a beast, and I think it's because he's likely a descendant of some very powerful people, and I think this is what helps kind of. This is the chapter, and when you tie it in with the boys' poem, and you kind of tie it in with some other things like Natalia Lackless and Iax's story, if you start kind of putting these pieces together, which you need this chapter to be able to put a lot of these big pieces together. Once you get here on your second reread, you got to jump forward, start pasting some of these stuff together. Then you realize, like, oh shit, it's not just. Oh, he mentioned, I'm telling you 3 times, and then I'm telling you 3 times came up later on. Or, he mentioned Faeldreenal, and Faeldreenal comes up in book 2. And like, oh, he had all these little Easter eggs. It's like, no, he has some major fucking implications for book 3 hidden in the text of these 2 books. And you can, when you start going through that, and like, maybe not everything we say is correct, or we're not interpreting it the right way, or maybe we're overreading some of the things, but we're not overreading all of them. It is clearly, these poems are clearly integral into figuring out what's going to happen in book 3.
No, and the dead ends that we go down are also I think a lot of them are meant to be there. Like
Yeah.
the little things that I throw out there that Dan, I think rightfully you say a lot of the time, no, that's totally wrong because of this and this. It's not lost on Rothfuss to have put them there. He did that shit on purpose. I think that there's a lot of this is a dead end in the maze.
Well,
but you should have
too,
gone down
like when you start going down these rabbit holes, then you start you just start looking for more things. You just start picking at everything, and so like it leads you to like, dude, I like when I go and I look up stuff online, I'll see some absurdly crazy theories that are so loosely connected, where it's like, well, this is what. Having so many hidden clues in the book, this is what this leads to. It leads to just massive conspiracy theories
Schizophrenia?
where like people are just say, any thread they could pull on, they pull on one thread and they just unravel the shirt, but it doesn't make any sense. I think what
Not
you got to
until
try
book
to
3
do
comes out.
yeah, and also like, but what you got to do when you're looking for these theories, like the big things is there evidence for the theory? It's not just pure speculation. Is there evidence for it? And then also, if that's true, what would that imply? And do those implications make any kind of sense? I think those are like the
Also,
first
do
two
they
things you have to
contradict?
look at. Yeah.
I think that one of the main things that you help me out with, Dan, is where does my little things that I have evidence for, I might have seen this, and so I say, but it contradicts somewhere else. I think that's a real important point to what Rothfuss does.
That's
he
when
lets
you're
you
trying
on, but you got to see where the contradictions are.
Well, there has to be
yeah,
sensibility also to why. Like, what does that entail? What does that imply? And is that payoff something that makes sense to the overall arching story itself? And if it doesn't,
like if you
then
come up
why
with
would
a
he
theory,
he's not just going to be reckless and throw stuff in just for the fun of it.
yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
if you come up with a theory and then you're like, well, that would imply X, and then the implication is, and that means Kvothe has 6 fingers, and then it'd be like, well, okay, and why would Rothfuss? Why? And it's like, Rothfuss is a really good writer. If the implication leads you to some weirdo, absurd thing, it's probably not the right guess, because Rothfuss didn't write in something that's going to be like, you're going to get to it at the end, you're going to be like, well, who gives a shit about that? That's stupid. Like if the implication leads you to something where you're like, well, that's stupid, it's probably not what he did.
Well, speaking of that, I'll just throw this out there for everybody to chew on. You could take it one way or the other.
I guess we have
I'll
to.
take it the other. I
Everybody,
take it the other immediately.
Okay, but here's the thing, guys. Everybody at the Waystone Inn is dead. Coat, Bast, they're all dead. They're all corpses. That's my theory. You consider the implications.
I'm taking it the other.
Consider the implications.
If he went down the lost path, especially after like Unlost, when they're like, it's not going to be like they're all dead at the end, and then they finish it and they're like, well, they were all dead in the end.
Well, it could be a
It's
totally
like, well, you
different
guys are
dimension.
dicks.
It's
Super fucking
Shyamalan,
whack.
M. Night Rothfuss.
Yeah.
Chew on it, audience. Don't listen to these guys right off.
It was all a dream. Just do that. It was
Makes
all
sense.
a dream.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the
Kvothe had the
instead,
flu.
like with M. Night Shyamalan and that Sixth Sense, and except for instead of him being actually dead, he's just like a pedophile, and he's just trying to worm his way into this kid's life.
It's all a dream.
And that's it.
And
that's the big twist.
Book 3 is just going to be like a highlight clip
It's like,
show.
what?
The end of book 3, it's just going to be Kvothe wakes up, his mother and father are right there, and he had a fever, and this was all.
Oh, that'd be so great.
Or even better, I got a better one for
That'd be so
Sixth
angry.
Sense. It's the kid finds out that this guy is actually a football coach, and he's just trying to worm his way into this kid's life because he wants to recruit him to go and play on his football team. He sees some real potential in the kid, and that's the big twist ending. Is that he wasn't there for any of the other reasons, to help him save dead people, to figure out why he sees dead people. He was there to recruit him to play football for him.
You know
can
what?
see
I see
that.
real potential.
Dan, I
I
like
see
that
real
theory.
potential in you. Now, you're scrawny as shit, but you're quick.
Yeah.
You have good
Yeah.
instincts.
Yeah.
And I think you're going
You
to
see things. You would be a great quarterback. Like, you see things that no one else can see. Like, you could be able to read the football field really well with this power you have.
What an awful application. I mean,
Yeah.
this dude's abilities. You're like, you know what? You'd be really good at this thing I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
I think you'd be really good at
ham-fistedly shoving
You're
in
like,
your own things
Hey,
into
look.
this kid.
Look, kid, I own this landscaping company, and that is what you're meant to do. You
I want to be like the
You're
M.
gonna be
Night
an artist
Shyamalan.
of front lawns.
I want to become like an M. Night Shyamalan, but all my twist endings are like just
Super mundane.
fucking super lame. He's got the lamest twist ending. Like, you didn't see it coming. It's definitely a twist ending. Did not see it coming. Super lame
You should
payoff.
make it the same.
Very
every
lame
time.
payoff.
Every time, everybody's dead.
Yeah. It's a football coach. Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Get in there.
The most obscure ways to get there, but at the end, it's going to be the same.
Every time it's a dead football coach trying to recruit you for his
Jesus
team in the
Christ.
afterlife.
It's so absurd. It's so absurd.
We're going to get in there. We're
Yeah,
going to go
so-
inside and outside. We're going to go inside, outside.
Yeah.
Is that a ghost?
Yeah, that actually, that's perfect. It ends with like the cheesiest, most stereotypical coach speech in the locker room. He's standing on a stool. It's literally like Rudy. Like, and he just does it
Newt
every
Rockney,
single time.
Every time it's Newt Rockney. The dead guy is
No,
Newt Rockney.
every time he.
And you have the same actor playing him every time. So every time you have the same person playing the same exact role in every movie, and you still try to shove it in as a twist ending. Like, bet you didn't see it. I know you thought, all right, he's done it 3 times. He's not going to do it a 4th time. But I did.
No, but make it worse, and so that every time is at the end, it's Mora going to the guys, playoffs.
Yeah.
I just want to win a game. You guys can't even win a game,
Dude, honestly, I'm starting to get pretty sold on this. I kind of love the idea by like the 4th movie. It's literally like, yes! The whole audience is cheering.
Yeah.
They're all standing
Everybody
up,
gets
going
behind it
nuts.
like, oh, he's not going to do it again. No way he's doing it again. Like, I know, it's the same actor, but no way he's doing the same exact ending. And he did it again!
It's just the extended Conway Twitty Grand Old Opry.
No way. How could he have made a
Just-
remake of Romeo and
just-
Juliet and ended up with Mora trying to win a playoff,
Basically-
trying to get in the
You're basically
playoffs?
like, you're like if Andy Kaufman was M. Night Shyamalan. Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
just fucking trolling the shit
No,
out of
but
the
seriously,
audience.
guys, they're all dead. Let's get back to it. They're all
Yeah.
dead.
This is where it all came to. Yeah, I love how your idea became what would be like the cheesiest way to end movies ever. It was literally like
Yeah.
Dan
Yeah.
became like, we're all just going to troll everything because your shitty idea, your theory is so bad.
It's got
It's like,
merit.
how do we troll the
guys just
entire
don't get it. It's
Kingkiller
got
audience?
merit.
They're all
It's
dead.
got merit. It may
Yeah, everybody's
There
dead.
may-
in a dream.
I'm
There may
going
not
to
be
do
evidence,
what
but there's
what people with
circumstantial
writer's block do to solve their problems.
Well, this is what, I was going to say, this is what we just said. If the end result ends up being lame, maybe give Rothfuss better credit than that.
I feel like he could make
But
them
that
all being
was,
dead great.
Yeah.
I think it's lame as
Yeah.
shit. So, how about that?
I whatever you think, Tim. Whatever you think is gold, huh?
Great comeback. That was fantastic. That comeback, that
fucking
stumbling
crushed him.
bullshit.
Fucking smacked him in the face so hard right there.
But you don't know. You
Tim knows diddly. Tim knows diddly.
Nuh-uh. No, you are.
That's not what I said.
Pretty much.
But yeah, that was it for me. Obviously, that's why we only are covering chapter 11 in this episode was because it's a monster with a lot to speculate on and a lot to dive into.
Yeah.
And then next week we're redoing 5 and 6 too. So we're gonna redo, what did we cover? Chapters 12 through 15, I believe. Yeah. We finished with I think we finished with right when Aventhy leaves the group, or right before that. I think we're going through 12 through 15.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, so that gets us about to Hallowfell. Yeah.
For these
Right.
short and seemingly uneventful chapters, so much is packed in. What a
No, dude, the crazy I mean, honestly, coming from my perspective, we did this. And I kept thinking, and Fitz did the same thing, like, really? Just one chapter? Like, really? And there's so much. I forgot how much there is to unpack and connect, and how much layers over itself.
I had no idea.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we don't even get to, we won't even get to 15, because I remember on originally on episode 6 we started off with Aventhy leaving, so we're just gonna go through like 12 through 14, but there's so much to talk about because you have the conversation about the Chandrian with Arladin and Lorien, who's Natalia Lackless, and Aventhy. They talk about that. They talk about where Kvothe could end up. Then we got some good stuff to talk about in episode 5.
And again, this is all like 100 pages.
Yeah,
he's putting this all in quite early in the to be trilogy of books, and they loom so freaking large. I mean, it's giving you massive pieces in a first read through. Don't really know it, you feel it. Don't really know it, don't really look so much into it. Maybe there's somebody out there that did on the first read through.
There's no way you'd have
There's no way.
I was gonna say it seems to take a lot away from the experience if you were to do that.
You have to tie things in from book 2 to book 1. You got to jump back and forth. There's just no way. You have to go back through and analyze it.
Unless
like if you go through, like on our podcast, if you go from episode 1 to probably episode 8, you're going to have a very good picture of how intricate the clues are into what could possibly happen in book 3, and how much stuff is just kind of under the surface that you kind of read about, but you don't really, if you don't think about it deeply, you don't understand kind of what some of the information implies for both books, and who these characters might be and what kind of role they could actually be playing. You get through the first 8 chapters. If you had never thought about these things, you're going to have a completely different appreciation for how good a writer Rothfuss is. Because when you read them the first time, these books are amazing. When you realize how in depth they go, then you realize he's really fucking amazing. That there's 2 layers to this book.
Yeah, dude, he's like an architect,
and each layer is amazing.
Here, Dan, these books, they insist upon themselves.
Already did that. Fuck. I was gonna say another option, which seems a bit odd to me, but you could listen to the podcast first, then read the books. You could do that.
Fitz didn't even listen to this podcast.
No, he didn't listen to this.
The joke that you said earlier in this episode.
He didn't even listen to this episode that he's on. Yeah.
What? I was giving. Yeah, I got to give you credit.
Again.
Give you credit for it. Go ahead.
It's like didn't even.
Obviously, you
credit.
credit.
It was the joke.
That was my joke.
It was so subtle. Like Tim Rothfussed him. He layered it in so subtle that Fitz brought it up like he thought he brought it up organically. He didn't even realize that where it came from.
Anyway.
Well, what's so perfect? What's so perfect too? No.
Yeah,
no, but what's so perfect about it is when I put it in, it actually made sense. But then when you put it in, fitting your character,
it landed. It's even more so. More so. Just gotta think deeper.
Out there, just
Tim. That's why it didn't make sense to you.
Awkward pause. No. It's like it was preambled by awkward pause, and then it was during an awkward pause, and then afterwards awkward pause.
What
do you
know about the preamble, Tim?
Oh man! All right, good stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yep, that
All right,
wraps her up.
We'll see you
I
guys
think.
next time for episode 5. Be cool.
All right. Peace out.
Yep.